Let's talk about implicit string concatenation in Python. Take a look at this line of code. It looks kind of like we're passing multiple arguments to the built-in print function, but we're not. If we pass multiple arguments to print, it'll put spaces between them. But it wasn't doing that before. Our code from before didn't have commas to separate the arguments. How is that possible? This seems like it should have resulted in a syntax error. A string literal is the syntax that we use in Python to create brand new strings. String literals involve using some variation of the quote characters to create a string. If we write multiple string literals next to each other, Python will concatenate those strings. It's as if we put a plus sign between them, but we didn't. This is called implicit string concatenation. It's a bit of an odd feature, but it can be handy sometimes. Take a look at this very long string. We could break this string up into smaller strings over multiple lines, and then concatenate the substrings together. We're using the plus operator to concatenate these strings, but since they're all string literals, we could instead rely on implicit string concatenation. This is the situation where you're most likely to see implicit string concatenation used, to break up a long string literal into smaller strings over multiple lines, putting parentheses around them to create an implicit line continuation, and relying on the lack of an operator between those literals to make implicit string concatenation happen. Even in a situation like this one, I usually prefer to avoid implicit string concatenation, as I find that it often causes more confusion than it's worth. Also, there's usually a better alternative. For example, here's some code that uses implicit string concatenation to concatenate many strings that represent lines of text into a single string. You might think that we could use a multi-line string for this instead, and we could, but we would need to remove the indentation from our string, which looks a bit odd. But Python has a dedent function in the text wrap module just for this situation. For representing multiple lines of text, I prefer to use multi-line strings and the dedent function instead of using implicit string concatenation. Another reason I tend to avoid this feature is that it can sometimes cause bugs by accidentally using it. Here's some code that makes a list of strings. This list has 4 strings in it. Let's modify this list to move the last string to the beginning. When we do this, we'll see that this list no longer has the same length. It now has only 3 items. This happened because we're now accidentally using implicit string concatenation. We don't have a comma after the first item in our list, so Python is concatenating that string literal with the one just after it. This is one of the reasons that I prefer to use trailing commas after the last item in a multi-line list or the last argument in a multi-line function call. This can help avoid an accidental use of implicit string concatenation. Code linters like pylint, flake8, and rough can often be configured to disallow the use of implicit string concatenation. So if you find this feature jarring enough that you'd like to never use it in your code, you can probably configure your linter to disallow it entirely. The next time you see 2 string literals next to each other, keep in mind that Python will automatically concatenate them. Some folks rely on this as a feature, but others consider it a bug waiting to happen.